Captain Rebecca Mitchell strode through JFK's crew lounge like she owned it, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, her pilot's uniform immaculate. She barely glanced at Marcus Thompson, a black flight attendant in his mid-30s, as he prepared his service cart for the transcontinental flight to Los Angeles. "Flight attendant," Rebecca called out sharply. "Make sure first class is pristine today. I have VIP passengers who actually matter." Marcus nodded politely. "Yes, Captain." What Captain Mitchell didn't know was that Marcus held a commercial pilot's license with 4,200 flight hours and had once been the youngest black chief pilot at a regional airline. Today, at 37,000 feet, her arrogance would nearly cost 215 lives, and only Marcus could save them. Before we dive into this story, don't forget to subscribe and like for more amazing stories like this one. You won't believe what happens next. Rebecca had a reputation for being brilliant, but ruthless. She treated flight attendants like servants, never learning their names, never acknowledging them as part of the crew. To her, they existed to serve drinks and look presentable. Coffee. Black. Now, she snapped at Marcus during pre-flight prep. Marcus brought the coffee without comment. He'd been enduring her condescension for 6 months. Ever since he'd taken this job after his airline went bankrupt. Mills didn't care about his pride or his pilot's license gathering dust at home. Flight 47 took off smoothly. 2 hours in, Marcus was serving business class when he heard shouting from the cockpit. The door burst open, and First Officer Jake Morrison stumbled out, his face pale. "Captain's unconscious. Some kind of seizure," Jake gasped. "I need help." Everything was about to change. Marcus rushed to the cockpit. Rebecca was slumped over the controls, her body rigid, unresponsive. Jake was panicking. "I've only got 300 hours on this aircraft," Jake stammered. "I can't handle this alone. We need another pilot." "You have one," Marcus said calmly, taking off his service vest. Jake stared at him. "You're a flight attendant." "I'm a licensed commercial pilot with 4,200 hours and type rating on this aircraft," Marcus replied, already assessing the instruments. "I was chief pilot at Sky Regional before they went under. We can do this together, or 215 people die. Your choice." Jake hesitated for only a second. "Get in the seat." As they carefully moved Rebecca's rigid body out of the captain's chair, Marcus slid into position. His hands found the controls with the muscle memory of thousands of hours. He keyed the radio. "Denver Center, Global Air 47. Medical emergency, Captain, incapacitated. Requesting immediate diversion to nearest suitable airport." His voice was steady, professional, commanding. The emergency was just beginning. "Global Air 47, nearest suitable is Denver International, 40 miles ahead," came the controller's response. "Cleared direct, descend and maintain flight level 280. Emergency equipment standing by. Direct Denver, descending to 280, Global Air 447, Marcus acknowledged. Jake watched in stunned silence as Marcus handled the aircraft with expert precision. Every control input was smooth, every radio call was textbook perfect. "You really are a pilot," Jake breathed. "I really am," Marcus said, trimming for descent. "Now run the emergency checklist while I fly." In the cabin, passengers were getting nervous. The senior flight attendant made an announcement about the diversion, but Marcus could hear the murmurs of concern through the open cockpit door. "Weather at Denver is deteriorating," Jake reported, checking the displays. "Winds 310 at 25, gusting to 35. Visibility down to 3 miles in snow." Marcus nodded. "We've handled worse. Set up for ILS 34. The approach would test every bit of Marcus's skill. As they descended through the clouds, turbulence shook the aircraft. The crosswinds were vicious, trying to push them off course. Marcus made constant corrections, his hands and feet working the controls with practiced precision. "Localizer alive," Jake called out. "Localizer captured," Marcus confirmed. At 500 feet, they broke through the clouds into driving snow. The runway appeared ahead, but the wind was pushing them sideways. Marcus applied rudder pressure, keeping the nose aligned while the aircraft drifted. 100 feet, Jake called. Marcus began the flare. The wind gusted hard, trying to slam them into the ground. He countered smoothly. The main gear touched down with barely a bump, and he deployed the thrust reversers. That was incredible, Jake said as they rolled to a stop. The moment they parked, the real confrontation began. Airport officials and airline management boarded immediately. Rebecca had regained consciousness but was still weak, being attended by paramedics. Robert Hayes, Global Air's chief pilot, confronted Marcus in the jet bridge. "Who authorized you to fly this aircraft?" "I authorized myself," Marcus said calmly. "I'm a licensed commercial pilot. The captain was incapacitated. The first officer needed help, and 215 lives were at stake." Hayes pulled out his tablet, searching databases. His eyes widened. Marcus Thompson, former chief pilot at Sky Regional, 4,200 hours. Perfect safety record. He looked up. "Why are you working as a flight attendant?" "Because when Sky Regional went bankrupt, I couldn't find another flying job," Marcus said flatly. "Being a black chief pilot at 32 apparently made me overqualified at some airlines and not a culture fit at others. I had a mortgage and student loans. Flight attendant was the only aviation job I could get." The truth was finally coming out. Hayes reviewed the cockpit voice recordings on his tablet. The landing had been flawless. The decision-making was exceptional. Everything Marcus had done was textbook perfect. "You saved 215 lives today," Hayes said quietly, "with a skill level that exceeds most of our captains." Rebecca Mitchell, now conscious and being wheeled past on a stretcher, heard everything. Her face showed shame as she realized the flight attendant she had treated like a servant for 6 months was actually more qualified than she was. "Mr. Thompson," she said weakly, stopping the paramedics, "I owe you my life, and an apology for how I've treated you." Marcus looked at her, all the months of disrespect flashing through his mind. But he also saw a woman who had just survived a medical emergency and was being forced to confront her own prejudices. "Just get better, Captain," he said simply. What happened next changed everything. The story went viral within hours. "Flight attendant saves 215 lives," dominated headlines. News outlets interviewed passengers who praised Marcus's calm professionalism. Aviation experts reviewed the recordings and called his handling of the emergency masterful. Global Air's CEO called Marcus personally. "Mr. Thompson, I've reviewed your file and the circumstances that led you to flight attendant work. It's unconscionable that someone with your qualifications was forced into that position." He paused. "I'm offering you a captain position, effective immediately. Full back pay for the time you should have been flying, and I want you to help us ensure we never overlook talent like this again." Marcus was speechless. After 2 years of serving drinks while qualified to fly the plane, his dream was being returned. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. Captain Marcus Thompson stood in the cockpit of a Boeing 737 preparing for his first flight as captain since the emergency. His first officer was Jake Morrison, who had requested to fly with him. Rebecca Mitchell, recovered from her medical issue and returned to flying, stopped by before departure. "Captain Thompson," she said formally, then smiled. "Marcus, I wanted to thank you again, and to say that I've recommended you for our new Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We need your voice." "I appreciate that, Captain Mitchell," Marcus replied. "Rebecca," she corrected. "And I'm sorry it took a crisis for me to see you as a colleague instead of what I saw you as." Marcus nodded. "We all have blind spots. The question is what we do once we see them." The lesson extended far beyond one flight. Marcus's story sparked industry-wide conversations about bias, wasted talent, and the assumptions people make based on job titles. 3 major airlines changed their hiring practices after discovering they had passed over qualified minority pilots. More importantly, Marcus started a mentorship program connecting experienced minority pilots with aspiring aviators who faced similar barriers. Within a year, the program had helped 47 pilots find positions they deserved. Rebecca became one of the program's biggest advocates, using her influence to push for change and speaking openly about her own transformation from prejudice to allyship. The flight attendant who saved 215 lives had proven that talent exists everywhere, but opportunity doesn't. And sometimes it takes a crisis at 37,000 feet to force people to see what was always there. Captain Marcus Thompson had finally reclaimed his wings, not through connections or luck, but through undeniable skill revealed at precisely the moment it mattered most. The end of one flight. The beginning of real change.